Hello and welcome to part 6, the final section of the online tutorial series that's been designed to help you make an application to the Rocket Grants program. This part will discuss budget preparation. Although this may seem complicated at first, it's actually quite a straightforward process. The most time-consuming part is doing good research to make sure that your predictions of how much your project will cost are accurate. Selection panels are very experienced at reading budgets, and if they feel that you have over or underestimated your budget, your proposal won't seem feasible. It's important also to remember that when you're finished, your total expenses should balance with your total income. First, download the relevant form by going to the Rocketblog site. You'll find the Budget Forms section in a pull-down menu under the About heading. You'll see that there are 3 versions of the same budget form to make sure that there's a format you can use. You'll see that the Excel.xls format is the preferred one. As a bonus, it will add your numbers up for you. The budget instructions form on the same page contains a much more detailed version of the information in this tutorial. If you haven't used an Excel file before, you need to know that unless you're tabbing between cells, you need to double-click on any cell to enter data. Here are some of the additional benefits of using the Excel format. You can enter as much information as is necessary in the Notes section on each line. If you use the Tab key on your keyboard, you can move easily between fields on the same line. Hitting Tab after entering a number in the dollar column will automatically format it as currency. And you can also change any of the items that are suggested in each category of the budget form just by double-clicking the cell, highlighting the text, and retyping, though you can't change the categories themselves. If you need to use the Word version of the budget, you can still change the line item text if you need to, but the amount of information you can enter in the Notes section is limited. The PDF file must be printed, filled in by hand, scanned, and saved as a PDF, and this is only recommended as a last resort. Let's look a little more closely at the categories. Hopefully, before beginning to fill out this form, you've taken the time to think carefully about the details in your proposed project so you can plan ahead well enough to be able to afford it. You'll see that the budget is divided into expenses and income. The first item in the expenses section is fees, and this is where you'll pay yourselves as professional artists for doing your work. A typical individual artist fee will be 10 to 15% of the total award, but if you're applying as a group, you may consider raising this to 25 or 30%. Obviously, the more of the award you spend on fees, the less will be available for other aspects. But depending on the nature of your project, this may be among the most important of the budget lines. Contractor fees would be relevant if you need someone who's not part of the project to perform services for you. Please remember that you can alter any of these line items to suit your project, or add others in the available spaces below. The Notes area would be used to briefly clarify the expense. For example, there are 5 key participants and we'll divide the fees evenly among us. There's a space at the end of the budget form for more detailed explanations of unusual circumstances. There are 2 remaining categories in the expenses section. You'll need to research your production costs to make sure that you don't underestimate in this area. If you're new to working in a public venue, ask others for advice. There may be aspects of the process such as licenses, insurance, or legal advice that you might not consider, and you should bear in mind that cost overruns in this area will probably end up coming out of your artist's fee. It's a good plan to have a contingency line that will cover the inevitable unforeseen expenses as the project unfolds. The last expense section is marketing, And this will be particularly important if your project involves any kind of an event. How will you let people know about what you're doing and when? For certain kinds of projects, this could be the main means of connection with the public, and you would reflect that in the sum allocated. You should strive to strike a good balance between allowing sufficient money in your expenses to cover real costs and overinflating, which will make your budget management look less credible. And finally, the income section. An important part of a budget is that it should balance. So the total in your expenses section should equal the combined total of your dollar income plus your in-kind income. In-kind income is anything that anyone contributes or donates to your project that's not money, such as space, food, materials, and so on. It needs to match a need in your project because otherwise it wouldn't offset the cost of your expenses. Also, it's important to remember that 10% of any Rocket Grants award will be withheld until the project's complete and final documentation is turned in. You should plan the timing of your expenses to take this into consideration. You would enter 90% of the grant you're requesting in the first line of the income section and the remaining 10% in the last line. You should save your budget file in the same format as the one you downloaded with the name of your project. For example, soupcansintheparkbudget.xls. When you saved your file and checked it for accuracy, simply upload it to the application on the Café site when prompted to do so. Once you've entered all the information required and uploaded your work samples and budget, you're done. The online interface will not be accessible to you after midnight on April the 1st, so don't forget to hit the submit button before the clock strikes 12. I hope that these tutorials have covered most of the general information you'll need to make a great application. But don't forget to check all the supplementary materials available to you. If you still feel that you'd like to schedule a brief one-on-one session with Rocket Grants staff to ask questions about your specific project, look on the Rocket blog for outreach sessions in your area. Thanks so much for listening, and good luck!